least twice back to back, maybe even 2.5 times. And it's one of my favorite movies. And having the pleasure to meet you, I've auditioned for this gentleman before. I didn't get the role, but I don't even remember what it was. It was just a pleasure to be in the presence of my heroes. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs I met, and Glenn Turman. And I'm just, how do you feel years later, every time this movie comes up? I know how
I'm amazed that the film, when I was working on the script with Eric Monti, I knew it was going to be successful. I just had that, because we had never seen young black kids loving each other, you know, and being real. There were a lot of stereotypes, and we were breaking the mold. For years and years, in effect, so deeply, a lot of people. You know? So I'm constantly amazed.
Can I ask you how old you were when you directed this?
I don't remember. I see. I never count. You know, because people ask me how old are you, and I never thought in terms of numbers. Maybe because I was afraid to count. But maybe mid-20s, 26, maybe.
Were you scared?
No. I was prepared, you know. I had an extensive theater background. I was pretty confident. I had made a couple of other movies that were very successful, smaller, but not Hollywood movies. My very first film was a film called To Be Young, Gifted, and Black that we did for PBS in New York. You know. And I'm working with incredible actors like Ruby Dee and Blythe Danner and Barbara Berry and Roy Scheider before he became Roy Scheider, Claudia McNeil. And I knew how to work with actors. In this movie, we can only afford 3 professional actors, and that was Glenn and Jared and Larry. Everybody else was from the community. So my wife, who played Cochise's girlfriend, she now runs a theater in Chicago, $20 million facility, you know, and Steve Williams, who went on to become yeah. So we found a lot of talent. There was a lot of talent in Chicago. I was lucky. It was definitely both. You know, I was just making a film about real kids, about a kid who had a dream that everybody was telling him, you're crazy, you know, why are you even dreaming that big? And the death of his friend is what catapulted him to go ahead and achieve his dream. You know? And that was Eric Monti's real story. That touched me from the core, but I didn't want it to be a sad story. I wanted it to be a story that was life affirming. And in spite of the tragedy, spite of the conditions that we grew up in, you know, we rise above it. And sometimes a tragic event has to happen to kind of shake you out of everything that people are telling you what you can't do.
Can you remember the environment, the atmosphere on the set, and what it was like, the crew, the interaction with the actors?
The making of Cooley High is more interesting than the movie itself because we had a all-white crew, and of course the kids were from the hood. Now, Cabrini Green was one of the toughest ghettos in the country than any East New York, whatever. You know? And the kids, in order to come to audition, had to cross a certain part that was a deadly affair, right? So we had this white crew that was afraid to come and park their cars, and we had these kids. I'll tell you a story, a real quick story. First day of shooting, first couple of days of shooting, we had these cops, but our cops didn't look like real cops. You know? So a kid comes up to me and he says, "Mr. Schultz, why do you have Center Cut Sam on your crew?" I said, "Center Cut Sam." He pointed over at this cop. He said, "That MF is the worst. He shoots off people's kneecaps, you know, steals the drugs and whatever." I said, this is the environment I'm in. In the course of completing the film, the crew and the cast, the kids, just became a family. It was really interesting.
Wow. Any questions? Right then and right here. Go ahead.
Well, it was made by a company called AIP, American International Pictures, and they were known for doing movies like Beach Blanket Bingo and Hell Up in Harlem and Sheba Baby and all of that. You know. The movie, we shot this in 1974, but it's set in 1964. It was really interesting because the head of the studio was a guy named Sam Arkoff. They had done all these successful B movies. And when the producer came to him with the idea, he said, "Oh yeah, great, okay, good idea." When his company, when the studio saw the movie, they said, how are we going to sell this? There's no sex, no violence, no, you know, they were used to Hell Up in Harlem and Sheba Baby, right? And I said, why don't you sell it like a movie, you know? And they came up with posters. I'd love to show you some of the original art they had. They had do-rag, red bugs, you know. Who were supposed to be high school students and with all these corny slogans. And we finally had to kind of talk them out of their stereotypical images, and they came up with a kind of cartoon poster that basically was pushing the comedy. But I told them, you know, I wanted to make this film so black that it would be colorblind. And they didn't know what that meant. The film was so real, the characters in the film were so real, that 40-year-old white men would come up with this. And when the picture played in Canada, and the studio saw how much money it made. They were amazed. And the film, it kind of broke a mold. It broke into Hollywood consciousness of a different way of telling stories about who we are.
Yes.
Eric Monti wrote the script, but I kind of molded. He didn't know how to write a screenplay, so I kind of walked him through how to do it. Okay, if you didn't hear, the question is, was the studio or people telling you how to do the film this way or they didn't want that, and how did I surmount those difficulties? I can maybe answer that by telling you a story about the casting. I had worked with Garrett Morris in New York Theater, and along with he and Bill Duke were really good friends. And my wife and they were in a Melvin Van Peebles play called Eight's Supposed to Die a Natural Death. So I knew Garrett's work as an actor, and I wanted him as the teacher. And in their mind, the teacher could only be Sidney Poitier. You know, they wanted a noble, tall, handsome, black teacher. And I said, look, Garrett Morris is a teacher. Then, when I found the girl, Brenda, I said, well, you can't hire her. She looks almost right. I said, yeah, that's your fault. I said, we come in all colors of the rainbow. Just things like, there's always like a white gaze, or we had to kind of push our stories through the white sieve. Well, the two guys who played the thug, that was Eric Monti's territory. It's his story. I kept looking for these two thugs, right? And they kept showing me the commercial. And I happened to be sitting in a car with a young black couple who owned a drugstore in the neighborhood. And I was complaining about not being able to find the thugs. And they said, oh, you mean like those two guys across the street over there? And Stone and Robert were walking down the street towards the car, right? And I said, yeah, do you know? And they said, yeah. I said, can you call them over the car and let me talk to them? And they came over to the car, and I asked one of them, I said, I'm making this movie about Coolie High, and all that. Can you guys read? And one of them said, yeah, I can. And so I said, well, come to the hotel. I want you to read for a part, And later that night, we're sitting there, and Norman, the dark skinned guy, and they started laughing. And then I said, what are you guys laughing at? They said, oh, we do this all the time. I cast them, and it was the best thing that I could have ever done. Because they were like the end of the Keystone Nation or Rangers or whatever, some subdivision like the Crips and the Bloods, the Disciples, and they were the real deal. And because I cast them, we had no trouble in the neighborhood ever. You know? So, yeah. Eric Monty. All right. Give this gentleman a hand. Do you all know Eric Monty's work?
What's happening?
What's happening? What else? Good times. He Norman Lear took all the credit for his work, but he was coming up with these ideas, and all based on his childhood in Chicago. For some reason, it wasn't. Mahogany had just been shooting there before we came, and they had all kinds of trouble with people shooting off the rooftop. You know, I don't know what it was. We had a production manager. He played the white detective with the hat. I think he had some kind of nefarious dealings in Chicago, so he kind of smoothed a lot of things out on the Mayor Daley side, and on the neighborhood side, Stoner Roberts smoothed everything out for us. We had no problem whatsoever. Exactly. Well, believe it or not, um, nobody but us valued Motown's music. So back in the day, and I was using the music on a shooter. So all the music for the kids to dance to and all, and of course it was Motown music because I grew up with that. Right? So, and then in the editing room, I just kept adding more because the music was like another part of the storytelling, you know. And so when I showed the film, we had all this Motown music in it. And the Gary DeBorzon, who was the music supervisor, had a connection to Motown. And he went to them. We got all of that music, almost nothing. Because the budget for the film was like $900,000, you know. And yeah,
You know, that's a great question, Mark. I'm come to you next. How many filmmakers do we have? Do we have any filmmakers in the audience? Did you notice the craftsman? I noticed a certain craftsmanship in setting up a scene. A scene is just not point the camera here, point the camera there, point the camera here. What is going on in the midst of all that? Case in point, I was totally in love with Brenda. And the scene when preacher's in bed and he decides to take a deep breath and go under to get the panties, right? There's movement. That might have been improv, I don't know or not. But also, when Preach comes in and sees his ex-girlfriend with Cochise and walks out, he walks down an alley, he gets something on his shoe. That could be the actors, but it's texture. And then he goes through the alley, and he doesn't just go through an alley. What's in the alley? A truck. And he's got to squeeze through, so there's all kinds of obstacles that are put in. I don't know where those came from, but it's in that film. The brake front. Oh, my brake front, my brake front. I've never even heard that word because in DC we called it an armoire or something. I don't know what we call it, China closet, whatever. obstacles coming at the character. You want to speak on that?
Well, some of it was in the script, like the break from. Some of it was improvised because I always leave room for the actors to contribute, to paint those pictures. Right? The thing with Brenda, we had a 17-year-old girl who had never acted before. Right? And so part of, and she had to be undressed in the bed. We were trying to be really, to make her comfortable, make her natural and all that. So Glenn, a seasoned primo professional actor, would do things like diving under the covers to make her laugh, to just make it feel okay for her to be there. So a lot of it was improvised, a lot of it was written in the script, and trash truck happened to be there.
Hey, let's shoot it. We gotta go.
Exactly.
We're on the clock. Shoot it. Let's go.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, anytime you find those great, we call them production elements, and you don't have to pay for it, great. You know.
That was, yes, sir.
Yeah. That Eric Monty and I had knockdown fights, verbal, not physical, about the language. He wanted the street person, and I said, no, I'm not having any of it. I want this movie to last through time. And he said, yep, the kid, if you don't talk the way they talk, they're not going to relate. I said, I don't believe that. You know? So I took all of the MFs, all of the cursing out of it except the ass. Okay? And bitch. And he was just apoplectic, because he thought that the kids would not relate to it. And I said, what they're going to relate to is the human interaction, not the language, you know. And so I'm glad to see that was accurate. It was only the way I felt. I didn't know if it was true or not, right? But I'm really happy to see that was an accurate way of portraying reality without having to make it profane, you know? Yeah. Well, my influences, when I decided I wanted to be a director, I was at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I was going to be an astronaut. And in my freshman year, I realized I was not cut out to do that. I was not going to be an engineer. And so I'm sitting in the back. I spent a lot of time in this little movie theater in Madison watching films by Fellini and Zeffirelli and Lelouch and Kurosawa. And little did I know that I was having my own film school. I was watching these great foreign filmmakers tell stories that were not Hollywood, that had some depth, that really made you think. Didn't make you happy necessarily, but made you think. And so those were my influences. Matter of fact, in Cooley High, the scene where they're in the classroom and they're trying to sneak out and they pass ink bottle. It's a direct steal from Fellini's film called Amacore. Because he had a classroom and they were doing a similar thing. He said, oh, I could use that in Cooley High. You know?
What was the suit?
Um, can you look forward to some new projects? Yes. I happen to be working with, anybody know The Last Dragon here? Yeah. Uh, anybody like The Last Dragon? The screenwriter, Louis Vanosta, who wrote The Last Dragon, a 25-year-old kid who he had written one script before, but like this was an amazing piece. Just got his copyright back from Sony, from the studio. And he and I have been developing a whole new Last Dragon franchise. For 38 years, Sony did nothing with, they didn't make a sequel, time off, and the whole story was so good, that I get people coming up to me, like you all were talking about Cooley High, talking about how the Last Dragon changed their lives, you know? So in 38 years, Sony has done nothing with property. They didn't even sell T-shirts, you know? So the fan base, all these entrepreneurial people started making Last Dragon T-shirts, Last Dragon sneakers, you know. And I went to Sony one day. I said, "Look, these people doing Last Dragon merchandise. Are you making any of this money? Am I making any of this money? No. What's wrong with this picture? There's a hunger out there for more, right? And you all are not valuing the property, you know? So we're going to do what you didn't do."
Thank you. Walt, how are we doing on timing? Okay. Yes. Hi.
Uh, some things came across my, vision, and I jumped on them because they just spoke to me, you know. But when I did Cooley High, it was such a success, and it was viewed as a comedy. So my next movie was Power. Yeah. And and, and that was viewed as a comedy. So I was like the comedy director. And I said, look, all of my theater work, I've done heavy hitting, political drama stuff. I am not just a comedy guy. I can do a lot more. So I spent a lot of my career choosing things that would break the box that Hollywood wants to put you in.
A few more, then we're going to.
When I spent a month working with Eric Monti, kind of teaching him how to write a screenplay, and took that script to the studio, and they read it, and they said to me, "No, it's good, but go home, rewrite every scene in a way that you've never seen it on screen before." And I thought they were just jerking my chain and trying not to do the movie, right? And so rewrite every scene. And my youngest son, Brandon, was a toddler, and he had a habit of uh, throwing things in the toilet. And the way the Cochise finds his letter was just very kind of mundane. He comes in the house, hides it on the dresser, and then is happy about it. I said, oh, what if his little brother, and there was no little brother in the school, what if his little brother put it in the toilet and he hides it in the toilet? I've never seen that before. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is a mixture of Eric Monte's growing up and my growing up, because I lived in Milwaukee, 90 minutes north of Chicago, and we had similar growing up experiences. And this is going to be novelized, not to my knowledge, you know.
Little baby. This guy right here.
And also, those of you who know The Last Dragon, remember in the movie theater, um, you hear this little voice, sure enough, comes in with his retinue, and this little voice says, I know somebody who could beat you. And they go to grab the kid, jerk him up by his jacket. That was him too. And then he went from acting to writing and wrote 5 years on Star Trek Discovery.
Also, with that scene, 13 takes. 13 takes being held up on my member's own jacket. My underarms were both bleeding by the time she cured me from acting. But I'm forever grateful for that moment. Congratulations. It's wonderful.
Hey!
So, Tamia, would you like to come up?
High, as everybody has mentioned here, has really impacted most of us in our national filmmaker. And when I saw the scene of Lawrence Hilton Jacobs being death basically as a kid, I was so impacted by that. I was so hurt. I didn't know if I was going to be able to sit through the movie again and to see that again, to see that scene. And then when I did sit through it, it was nothing compared to kind of what's going on now. You know what I mean? So when I looked at that, I thought, I said, what happened? You know what I mean? Because at the time when I first saw that, when you created that and put that on the screen, I was devastated. This boy was beat to death. It wasn't depicted. You know what I mean? So you really opened my eyes, personally, as a young person, but also as a filmmaker. I just looked at it through high and the characters through high, and I thought, I really feel something. So thank you so much. So I have a proclamation for you, if you honor reading it. Lifetime Achievement Award. That's it. Appreciation. This is in recognition of your unparalleled contribution to the world of entertainment and your remarkable career spanning decades. Your exceptional talents, unwavering dedication, and visionary storytelling has left an indelible mark on the hearts of the audiences worldwide. Through your work as a director, you have illuminated the silver screen cinematic masterpieces, captivating generations with a unique perspective and profound storytelling prowess. Your creativity, artistry, and commitment to excellence have set a benchmark in this industry, inspiring countless aspiring filmmakers and artists to push boundaries and reach the goals. As a true visionary, you have effortlessly transported audiences into magical worlds, brought characters to life with depth and authenticity, and transformed storytelling into an unforgettable experience. Your body of work, your body of work stands as a testament to your passion, innovation, and remarkable artistry. Each framework you have crafted, each story you have told, has shaped the landscape of cinema and enriched our collective imagination. With utmost admiration and gratitude, we present this Lifetime Achievement Award to you, MichaelS, a true icon and a luminary in the world of entertainment. May your remarkable legacy continue to inspire generations to come. God bless you.
It's absolutely beautiful. Matter of fact, whoever wrote this should be my publicist. I would just like to. I would just like to thank Walter McConnell for being the visionary in the sands of Vegas to build a festival culture and acknowledge filmmakers. And so I'm very happy to be a part of it, and I applaud you for all the hard work that you have been doing to make this happen. So let's give him a...
This is a trailblazer right here. And I appreciate him for coming out. He could be anywhere he wants to be in the world, but he chose tonight to share with us.
Yes.
And that means a lot to you. And it should mean a lot to you as well.
Right.
Because he has shaped some things for us. That black exploitation, this icon changed that.
Yes.
Right here.
That's right.
And we need to appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Who's got the camera? DD?
I definitely want to be in this picture. All right. And thank you so much, MichaelS. Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure.
Double.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Are we going to, the next film coming or?
We have a really nice short film next.
Okay.
Tomato Soup.
Tomato Soup with Michael Collier.
Collier, the comedian, does an amazing job. It's only like maybe 10 minutes long.